In my podcast discussion with Vishal Purohit, the founder and CEO of Wooker, he shared an amazing insight about product thinking. Let me ask you a question. If you want to become a product manager, and if you go for a job interview where they ask you, so why is it that you think you're a good product manager? How will you answer? Will you answer based on your certifications or your degrees, or in other words, some form of external validation? Or are you going to give them a more direct answer that proves your ability to think deeply about what it means to create a good product? The trouble with external validations like certificates and degrees is that sometimes we get too enamored by them. We believe that just because we have a piece of paper, a stamp of approval, means we have reached there. We can convey everything. And the biggest test in which such an information is deciphered is when the person will ask you the next question, which is, can you give me an example of a product that you love? See, I'm an engineer. I work day in, day out with most tech people. And quite often when that question is posed to us, the answer comes back as either a hardware or a software product. But that only cuts until a certain level. After a point, we all start struggling. To me, what that indicates is we like a product, we don't love it. And there's a big gap between what you like and what you love. And why does that matter for a product strategy? When you love something, you are connected with some aspects of it that give you a wow experience. And if you are so much in love with that aspect, you're bound to determine what those are and deliver it in other pieces of products. So then we should not give any hardware or software products as examples? No, by all means, if you are in love with some, go for them. But Vishal suggested another interesting example. He's like, give me examples of movies or books or songs that you love. And there's a fabulous takeaway from that. I mean, think about your favorite movie. You must have watched it, 10, 15, how many number of times? When you feel down in the dumps, when you have a cold and fever, you're sitting with your cup of hot coffee and you turn on that movie. Why? Because it takes you, to that wonderful place where things connect well. And you can't explain it, but it leaves you happy. And I think that's what being in love with a product is. So give examples of movies. And movies is just one of the categories. It could be books, it could be other things, it could be an activity product, it could be a cycle that you love. If you are into painting, it could be the type of a crayon or the type of painting brushes that you are so much in love with. And the reason for digging deep and giving those products as examples is because you understand innately what makes them so good. That's what you need to explain when it comes to answering those kind of questions. So how should I prepare for that? You don't need to. If you truly love something, you don't need to. But there is one activity which you need to do, which is mapping the terminology that you've learned in a formal course with this kind of an example. So if you have, let's say, learned product thinking or product strategy, and maybe they use certain frameworks, and those frameworks are applied to real world business case studies, apply them to your movies. And be very honest about the movies that you give as an example. You see, when I'm with friends, and let's say it's a group that I'm not totally familiar with, I want to show that I have a higher taste or something. If they ask me, hey, what kind of movies you like? I might give them an answer like, well, I like Chris Nolan movies. because there's a certain finesse. I like to portray that thought leadership which is there in those movies, which is true, by the way. But once someone really connects with me, once they are my buddies, they know deep down I'm a Govinda fan. I used to have CDs of his movies and his songs, but that's something I'm not very open in sharing. Similarly, I've met people who are deep down amazing Rajnikant movie fans. They watch his movies first day, first show. Even if that first show is at 2 in the morning, they'll find a way to make it over there. They're the ones clapping, whistling, throwing paraphernalia, whatnot. And they'll keep watching that movie time and again. So use those movies as an example. And maybe with this new lens that you have of being a product mastermind, apply the frameworks that you've learned to these products, which are movies or songs or other things. And sometimes that framework application is not intuitive. There was a time when I used to work with a group of friends with the goal of generating inventions. And we used to follow this framework, which is observing pain points, then discussing that with the group, after which we would hit upon like a key problem that we wanted to solve. And then later we would brainstorm, and if we hit on a solution that we felt passionate about, we would find a way to turn that into inventions. Much later, years later, I figured out that this framework that we were doing was called as design thinking. We just did not know those terms. And we didn't really care. Because that terminology, that taxonomy, is just some names, but we were in love with that process. We were in love with that activity. And for products and things that you love, that taxonomy doesn't matter, because you just love them for what they are. But to prepare yourself for a career over there as a product manager, you have to find a way to see how a KPI might translate into something that you've seen in movies. So you have to maybe watch that same thing from a different lens. Now you're putting more rigor into that process, but do that. And if you do it a few times for the things that you truly care about, answering those kind of questions when it comes to product management and product thinking will be a very natural thing for you. So to sum it up, I love this takeaway that Vishal Purohit shared with us, which is to be a good product manager, to figure out what features to provide to a user. Your examples can come from anywhere. It can come from your favorite movie. It can come from your favorite book. You just need to care deeply about it, and in such a way you have to understand it that you can explain it well to others. That will elevate your work. Try it, and until then, happy ideating.